guys, welcome back to the channel and thanks for joining me again. In this short and sweet lesson, we're going to look at each of the 5 blues scale or minor pentatonic shapes, and we're going to learn a lick in each one. So I just want to make a couple of quick little key points before we get into things. So the 5 minor pentatonic shapes, how do we find them? Well, an easy way is to think about the 5 notes in the scale. So in the case of the A minor pentatonic, that would be A, C, D, E, G. And progressively moving along the low E string, each shape is going to start on each of those 5 notes. Shape 1 starts on the first note, A. Shape 2 starts on the second note, C. Shape 3 starts on the third note, D. Shape 4 starts on the fourth note, E. And then shape 5 starts on the 5th note, G. And don't worry, before each and every lick I'm going to run up and down the shape that's being used just so we can see the bigger picture. Oh, and also with the lesson materials, as well as the tab and notation in Guitar Pro and PDF formats for the licks themselves, I'll also include a sort of a master sheet of all 5 of the shapes. Now, one final point before we do get things moving, I just want to define the difference between the minor pentatonic and the blues scale, or the minor blues scale to be specific. So the minor pentatonic is the 5-note scale, root, flat 3, 4, 5 and flat 7. Add the flat 5 to that and you've got yourself the blues scale, or the minor blues scale. There's the flat 5, very easy to find because it's going to be stuffed right in between the 4 and the 5. So essentially, as long as you're really comfortable with your 5 pentatonic minor shapes, you can very easily go and add that flattened 5th, the blue note as we call it, and now you've got yourself the blues scale in 5 positions. Okay, so all of these licks are going to be using the A minor pentatonic scale, and for lick number 1, we're in shape number 1. That looks like this. Now let's add the flat 5, making it the blues scale. So this one kicks off with a very common blues idea, where we whip this bend on the G string a whole step, make sure we leave the bend at the peak and come off it without hearing it dip back down. And then we bar the first finger on the top 2 strings and go from the B string to the E string and back. And then a little lazy kind of quarter to half-ish bend at the 8th fret of the top E string, just hinting at that major third. Now just to mention, it's really worth putting time into working on how to exit a bend at its peak without accidentally hearing it roll back down the hill, because it doesn't sound good when that happens. So you've got a couple of ways you can do that. You can either get the left hand to mute well, so that when you come off the string, the fingers behind the leading finger are muting those strings, so you don't get this kind of sound. Or you can use the right hand and literally just kind of touch the strings, mute them in that right hand. Or do a bit of both, like take out an insurance policy on it. I probably do mostly left hand and the right hand's just hovering and waiting, just in case. Okay, so the rest of the lick, you've done this bend, then we make our way back down through the top 3 strings, 5 and 5, and then the blue note and a slide to 7, pull off to 5, hammer on to 7. So that's all legato on the G string there. And try and get that good solid timing, triplet feel. And then to the B string, 5th fret, and then roll your finger straight back to the G string. Another lazy little bend, because again it's that minor third, just 1 octave below where we had it before. Always helps to put a bit of bend on that note, makes it sound a little dirtier. And then we come down this A minor triad. And then a fast bluesy hammer on from 5 to 7. Walking down the scale, just the blues scale, including that flattened 5th. And then a trill from 5 to 6 and back. Continue down the scale, find that root 1 octave higher. That's a nice little sign off you can always chuck on the end of any lick. Works on anything. Okay, so here's that whole phrase slowed down. Notice how I'm accenting the beat quite heavily with some hard pick strikes now and then. I think that's really important to give it a solid groove and to make sure you're locked into the pocket. If I really exaggerate it, it's this kind of thing. Bit more tasteful and a bit faster, you'll hear how that makes it really pulse. Maybe a little exaggerated still, but you get the idea. Now just for the fun of it, and so we can hear these licks in context, let's chuck a loop down, a bit of an A minor groove, and see how these things sound over it. So for lick number 2, surprise, surprise, we're in shape number 2 of our A minor pentatonic scale. And remember, we said we could easily find each of our 5 pentatonic shapes by thinking about the 5 notes in the scale, A, C, D, E, G, and plotting them out along the low E string, and starting each shape from each of those notes progressively. So the second note is C, therefore the second shape starts on C. And remember that shape 1 is the only one that truly starts on the root of the scale, you know, the A note. So for the other ones, you'll notice that I always return back to the root, so I find the nearest A root note, which is why I made it back halfway through the shape. It's just good to get your ear to associate it with the A tonal center. Now let's add the flatted fifth to make it the blues scale. Now for this lick, we're starting on our top string and we're going to do this little trill and a pull off. So we're hammering on from 10 to 11 and back and then pulling off to 8. So that's bringing in that flatted fifth. And then back to the top string. And again, like before, where we get to that flat 3, we like to bend it slightly. Makes it sound a bit dirtier. And then we keep coming down the scale. That same trill as before, but 1 octave lower. Then we just keep following the scale down till we get to this E note, and then bounce to the D string to finish on the root A. Okay, now with our loop from earlier, let's hear how lick 2 sounds. Now our third lick uses the third shape of the A minor pentatonic scale. The third note of the scale is D, so we find that on the low E string, begin our shape there and look for the other notes. D, E, G, A, C. Now with the flatted fifth or blue note added. I feel like shape 3 is quite underappreciated. It might even be my personal favourite shape of all 5 of them. There's a certain way the notes are organised that just lends itself to really nice sounding phrases. This one starts on the G string 9th fret and walks up the scale before backtracking for a moment. Then we switch fingers here so we can then grab the 13th fret of the B string and add one of those lazy bends again, because of course, as before, it's that minor third we've been talking about. We want to give it a little bit of grease. Then continue up the scale, the minor pentatonic without the blue note. Then bring that blues note in. Little quick pull off from 11 to 10 on the top string. Add some good vibrato on this resting note for a moment before continuing down the scale. Another bit of legato here, just like before. It's the same thing, isn't it? It's just on the D string now. And then we come down. So there's that clear A minor triad being outlined again, just like there was earlier. It's really important to work on this kind of legato stuff to make sure each note is crystal clear, nice and strong. Then we came down the triad, and then finished with a little slide from 10 to 12 on the A string. And again, make sure that you're really trying to play these things slowly first and create that real pulsing feeling with the rhythm. A little slower. And with the loop. Now lick 4 uses shape 4. What's the 4th note of the scale? E. So we find that on the low E string and start our shape there. E, G, A, C, D. With the blue note added. Again, remember all of these shapes are going to be typed out in tab and notation along with the licks themselves in Guitar Pro and PDF formats. And you can get hold of that stuff at the links in the description. You can join my Patreon for just 10 quid a month. That gives you access to all of my lessons, past, present and future, well into the hundreds now. So much stuff there to dig into. Or you can buy this as a one-off purchase at the Gumroad link. Either way, I really do appreciate your support, and it's what helps me to keep making these videos. So thank you so much. So phrase number 4 starts with the classic train whistle lick. This part here, very cool sounding. This is the minor 3rd and the 5th, so that's the 12th fret and the 13th fret on the top 2 strings. Bend the B string alone, not the top E, and bend it very lazily again. Surprise, surprise, it's that flat 3, that C note. Find it all over the fretboard. Again, some fast vibrato, just engage it quickly. And then we do a full bend at 15 on the B string, hold it at the peak, squeeze that pinky in underneath and pick the top string, and then come back down on the bend, Joe Walsh style. Back down the scale. Then some double stops. Kind of Hendrixy. So this would be the G and the C. So that's frets 12 and 13 on the G and B strings. Hammer onto the 14th fret while keeping that top note ringing. Then come down to the next 2 strings, bar at the 12th fret, do 2 quick hammer-ons from 12 to 14 on the D string, and then come down the scale. Here it is slowed down. And with our loop, I really like how that double stop sounds when you add vibrato to it. To both strings equally, that's a good thing to work on as well. Sounds almost like a whammy bar. Anyway, on to shape number 5 for lick number 5. Now we could continue along the fretboard to find shape number 5, or we can drop down to the lower octave now because we're well above the 12th fret. For the sake of tone and making it sound a bit meatier, I've chosen to go down an octave, but obviously this stuff works just as well at the 15th fret too. Okay, so think about the 5th note of your pentatonic scale, G. So we're starting on G, and then we're looking for the remaining notes, G, A, C, D, E. So there's shape 5, with the blue note added. Now this is another one of my favourite shapes. I mean, I think I might love them all equally, to be honest, but you know, I said shape 3 was a personal favourite, shape 5 is also a really good one. Both underused, but both brilliant. My favourite thing about shape 5 is just how easy it is to do these really cool sounding double stops. If you saw my Swampy Blues Riffs video, that was full of that kind of stuff in the key of G. Do check that out if you like that kind of sound. So the final phrase starts with that exact same idea. All the way through that part, I'm keeping the pinky on the root on the top string here. I'm hammering on from the flatted fifth to the fifth, and then pulling off from the flatted fifth to the fourth. So just playing around with that little area either side of the blue note. And a bit of a trill. Then continue down the scale, return to the root. Then carry on down the scale. And again, that same idea that we've done now 2 other times. It's really important to work on being able to repeat an idea through your various shapes so that you can grab what your ear wants to hear. So far we've had this, this, this. We've used it in shapes 5, 1, and 3. And I guess it would make sense to try and find that in your remaining 2 shapes, wouldn't it? Just to be really thorough. So let's see. Shape 4 and shape 2. Have it mapped out everywhere. Now once we've done that, we come down the scale, another one of those fast hammer-ons, return back to the root. Notice how I'm using my pinky quite a bit there. You could use the 3rd finger if you prefer, but I prefer the pinky in this case. Oh, and remember to add vibrato to that root note in the middle of the phrase. Okay, so here's the whole thing slowed down. And here it is in context, full speed with the loop. 3, 4. Now before we get into some gear talk, just for a bit of a laugh, I'm going to put the loop on and run through all 5 of those licks in order. 3, 4. One octave higher. Fun times. I think we'll raise a cup of tea to that one. Cheers guys, good work. Cool, so that's all 5 licks done. Now these can be played at any speed. The intro performance was probably a bit slower than what we've been doing here with the loop. But even when we slowed these things down to a crawl, they still sounded great because the note choice is there and the technique is there. So it doesn't really matter what speed you play these things. Now, of course, from a technical point of view, it is good to try and learn licks like this and get them note for note the same and play them with the same feel and the same tempo and all that. But in terms of when you actually apply this stuff to your own lead playing, it's not a case of necessarily slotting these in note for note how we've done them today. I like to think of these things more like pathways, where the lick shows you a certain route that you can take through a shape, and then you can retread that pathway yourself and do things slightly differently. Maybe twist the notes around into a different order or something, or phrase things differently. Speaking of which, all of these started on the first beat of the bar. I wanted to make sure we kept it dead simple, starting on the downbeat every time. But it's worth trying to move these things around so you come in on the 2nd beat, the 3rd beat, the 4th beat, or on the off beats, the and of 1, the and of 2, and so on. Also, make sure that once they're in your muscle memory, you start moving these things around to different keys. So I'd always recommend using the cycle of fourths to just pick a key. So from the key of A minor to the next key would be D minor, then G minor, C minor, F minor, B flat minor, E flat minor, A flat minor, and so on. Let's finish off with a bit of gear talk. This is my Nacho caster, and I was on the bridge pickup the whole time. Tone was rolled back just very slightly, and the volume was all the way up. I was running that into a Vemuram Shanks overdrive pedal, which is just like a Nobels ODR1 essentially, but very slightly modified. And that goes into the Strymon Flint for a bit of reverb, and then it hits my 64 Fender Bassman, where I've got it set pretty clean. It's on 4 volume-wise. That goes into the aux box, which then brings it all into the Apollo Twin interface, and then that sends it to the computer, my Mac, where I'm using Logic Pro to mix everything, as always. And I add just a small little bit of compression and EQ, just a low cut to control that bottom end a little bit. Again, today I'm using those Stringjoy Broadway strings. They sound brilliant, they feel brilliant, I'm really into them. And I'm using a Dunlop H3 pick, the little Jazz 3 shape ones, but they're a bit stiffer, I think. H3 is heavy, so heavy gauge, the little purple ones basically. Okay guys, so let me know down in the comments if you enjoyed this video. Please do make sure to hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. These are the things that make a channel grow. They're so important. So please guys, do that for me. I'll be eternally grateful. And I'll see you again next time for something completely different. Maybe we'll do a jazz version of this. 5 jazz licks in each of the 5 caged shapes, or 5 country licks or something. Let me know what you vote for down in the comments. Alright, see you guys. Take care.